Hello! This is just a continuation of our tutorial last time. Last session, I've already introduced you to the 4 modes of AutoCAD, namely drafting and annotation, 3D Basic, 3D Modeling, and AutoCAD Classic. I have also mentioned a few of the important commands when it comes to 3D modeling and have said that we'll start 3D modeling this session, but unfortunately, I think we might need to focus more on getting ourselves familiar with the toolbars and the commands before doing that. So let's get our hands on AutoCAD. Okay, so now we're on the, of course, 3D modeling mode. And what I'm going to be discussing for this session is all about toolbars. And as you can see, we have several toolbars on top, and then we have another toolbar below. So I'm going to discuss first all the toolbars that are on top of this software. The one good thing about this software also is that if you're unsure or unfamiliar with the command inside that toolbar, all you need to do is hover above that command and it will explain what it does. As you can see, and a new message box will appear which kind of summarizes the whole explanation of the function of that particular command. So as you can see from the first toolbar that we have, which is modeling, we have the box, which of course creates a 3D box image, and then we have extrude. Extrude creates a 3D solid or surface by extruding a 2D or a 3D curve. Later on, we'll discuss more about this because this is one of the 5 commands that we all need to learn when it comes to 3D modeling. Next, under extrude, we have loft, we have revolve, and then we have sweep. This is also part of the 5 commands that I'll be teaching you on the advanced stage of AutoCAD tutorial. So after modeling, we have the mesh. Mesh is simply if you have already an object, you've drawn an object that it's kind of like edgy. If you wanted to smoothen out that object, you can click on this smooth object or smooth mesh object. So under this smooth object, we have smooth more and smooth less. So this is like self-explanatory. If you want to smoothen the surface even further, you can select on smooth more, so increases the level of smoothness for mesh objects by 1 level. And then for the smooth less, of course, decrease the level of smoothness for mesh objects by 1 level. So that's under the mesh toolbar. And then we have solid editing. Under solid editing, we have union. So from the term itself, union, you can combine 2 solid 3D objects together. So as you can see from the picture, from the message box that appeared here, if you try to combine object 1 and object number 2, the result will be on the third object in vermilion color. And then this is, of course, if we have union, we have subtract. And it's, of course, you have to remember that if you select the object as the first object or the main object, that will be the one that you will be subtracting the second object on. So you have to remember that the first object that you select will be your main object. Okay, so of course, if you have union, you have subtract. As you can see from this message box, we tried subtracting object number 2 from object number 1. That's why the result is in the shape in vermilion color. And then we have intersect. So as you can see from this, it's more complicated version of subtract. So it creates a 3D solid or 2D region from selected overlapping solid or regions. And then we have several commands still under solid editing. I'm not gonna explain this one by one. I've only explained these three because these are the most important commands that you need to learn when it comes to 3D modeling. Now we go to draw. Draw toolbar. All of this command under draw toolbar are very important when it comes to 3D modeling, because with extrusion, with extrude command, all of the 2D solid 2D object that you've drawn on your drawing area, you can convert that into 3D by using the extrude command. I'll be showing you an example of that maybe next session, so you'll understand and appreciate more what I'm saying. But yes, this drawing toolbar is pretty much the most important toolbar when it comes to 3D modeling. Of course, under the draw toolbar, we have the P line. I've already explained this when we tried creating a square. So we can create a box model, 3D model out of it. And then we have 3D polyline. We have 3-point arc, so for curves. Then we have SP line, another very important command when it comes to 3D designing. We have line, of course. I've already explained this to you last time. We have circle, or center radius, circle. We have polygon, another way for you to draw your shapes, your solid shapes using polygon. And then rectangle, and then center, ellipse for oblong, or semicircle objects. So that's drawing, or draw toolbar for you. Next, we have modify. So for modify, all of your object on the drawing space, you can modify, of course, using the modify toolbar. Under this toolbar, we have several commands. We have 3D mirror if you wanted to copy, but on a different, of course, on a different angle, 3D object. We have 3D move if you wanted to move an object from one place to another. We have move, moving objects a specified distance in a specified direction. And then we have copy, copying of course, your objects on the drawing space. We have trim. From the term itself, it's pretty much self-explanatory. We have 3D align, we have 3D rotate. So if you already have a 3D object, 3D rotate is also very important when it comes to modifying your 3D object. We have rotate. So what's the difference between the two? 3D rotates are for 3D objects, while rotate is of course for 2D objects. Then we have stretch. From the term itself, it stretches the objects caused by a selection window or polygon. And then we have fillet. Again, from the term itself, it rounds and fillets the edges of your objects. And then we have erase, of course, deleting or erasing a certain part of your drawing. 3D scale, if you wanted to scale or enlarge the object, you can use this one. And then scale, of course, the difference between the two, this is for 3D objects and this is for 2D objects. Then we have offset, creates concentric circles, parallel lines, and parallel curves. And then finally, we have the rectangular array. Arrays are important as well. So you wouldn't need to create the same object at the same time if you need several of them. You can always use array. And then we have the selection plane. Selection plane just creates a section of object that acts as a cutting plane through 3D object. So as you can see from here, if you wanted to cut a certain solid object into half, you can choose selection plane. This is under section toolbar. Then we have coordinates. Coordinates is just for viewing. So we have show you UCS icon at origin. Displays the UCS icon of the origin. This is the UCS origin 00 line. And then we have X, which rotates the user coordinate system about the x-axis. Of course, if we have the x-axis, we have the UCS for XY, aligns XY plane or of the user coordinate systems with the screen. And then we have all of these icons again that you can check under coordinates. You can just play around with this if you have already an object on your drawing space. And then of course we have view. View toolbar is also very important. There are several types of view that you can select from here. You have by default this is set on 2D wireframe, but you can also set it on conceptual, hidden. If you have already a 3D image, you can, if you select on the hidden, all of the hidden lines will of course not show on your object. And then we have realistic view, we have shaded view, we have shaded with gray, with edges I mean, and then with shades of gray, and then sketchy, wireframe, and then x-ray. That's under view. And then we have selection. Under selection we have calling, no filter, and then move gizmo. So for calling object, controls whether objects that are hidden from view are highlighted when you roll over them. And then for no filter, all objects, vertices, edges, and faces are highlighted when you roll over the objects. Move gizmo, of course, is the 3D gizmo that we have here. So sets the default to display at the 3D move gizmo when an object is selected. And of course we have layers. Layers is just a way for you to organize your 3D models. You can layer, let's say for example, all of the screws together are on the same layer. So if you wanted to remove all the screws, you can just hide this layer and it will not show on your drawing, rather than drawing everything on just one layer. So this just pretty much organizes everything for your drawing. And then of course groupings of each and every objects. So down we have a very important toolbar. Here you can already see by default we have the grid on display, so it's already enabled. What's the grid? That's the, as you can see, if I disable the following, there will be no grid on your drawing space, which is kind of a little confusing when it comes to 3D modeling. It's always advisable that you enable that, but by default it's enabled. That will be enabled. And then we have polar tracking. This is what I was telling you last session. Polar tracking is the one that guides you whether you're on a straight line, because it's really hard for you to manually select which straight line is. So polar tracking does that for you, and you can actually set polar tracking by right clicking on it and then go to settings. So if you wanted your polar tracking to guide you on a, let's say for example on a particular angle, because you wanted to draw a triangle, of course triangles are on a certain angle, you can edit that here. You can either choose 5 increment angle, so every 5 degree it will show the polar tracking, so it will let you know that you're on a 5 angle or you're in a 10, 15, or 18 angle. So it's always advisable, if you're trying to draw something out, select 15, then click on OK. And then after that, as you can see, every 15 degrees, there 15 degrees, the polar tracking will show 30, 45, 60. So that's how polar tracking works. It's just a way for you to it's just a function that makes it easier for you to draw 2D that will be converted into 3D. And then next we have this object snap. This is another very important function that I've mentioned last session regarding endpoint. This is where you can enable the following. So go to settings, all you need to do is right click on it, go to settings, and then you can enable all of the functions that you need for object snap. You can find the midpoint of a certain line, the end point of a certain line, the center of a circle, the quadrant of a circle, or anything that meets or needs the following criteria to for your 3D model. So as you can see, if you try to I've selected endpoint, say 500 millimeters, and then I wanted to draw a line in the middle. As you can see, it automatically detects the midpoint of the line. So that's how important object snap in this particular software, because it lets you detect the end line, the midpoint of a certain object that would be really hard to find when you're trying to look for it manually. Actually, it's quite impossible to get the end point doing it manually. It's quite impossible actually. So this is very important when it comes to 3D modeling and 3D drawing. So always check on that object snap. Right click, settings, and then you can choose whichever object snap modes you wanted to enable. And then of course we have several commands down here, but I wouldn't be explaining that those extra commands or functions that are disabled. So next we have object snap tracking. Of course, if polar tracking is enabled, you also need to enable this, but by default it's already enabled. We have allow, disallow dynamics UCS. That's the view for your objects or for your drawing space. And then we have show, hide, transparency. So basically these are the toolbars that you need to study and further your review on before we go to or even start with 3D modeling. But yep, it's pretty straightforward. If you're unfamiliar with the command, all you need to do is hover above that command and it will show the main function and even give you a visual example. So that's it for us today. I hope you've learned about the overview of the toolbar of AutoCAD. I do prefer that you practice. Try each and every command under a certain toolbar so you understand each and every functions even further. And for our next session, I'll be explaining more about the 5 commands. We'll be starting with the 3D modeling of an object. So thank you for watching and please subscribe to my channel and bye.